You're pathetic for renting." Derek's words cut through the Thanksgiving dinner like a knife through butter. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. The entire family went silent. 20 pairs of eyes turned toward me, waiting for tears, for an outburst, for the drama Derek clearly wanted. He stood there with his wine glass raised, that smug grin plastered across his face like he'd just delivered the greatest insult of the century. My mother gasped. My father shifted uncomfortably in his chair. My younger sister Vanessa looked down at her plate, pretending she hadn't heard anything. But I heard it. Every single word echoed in my head like thunder. Pathetic. For renting. The room felt smaller suddenly, like the walls were closing in. I could feel everyone's judgment pressing down on me, their silent agreement with Derek's cruel assessment. Here I was, 33 years old, still renting an apartment while my brother bought his third investment property. At least, that's what they all thought. What they didn't know, what Derek especially didn't know, was that I owned a real estate portfolio worth $750 million. I'd built an empire in silence while he bragged about his mediocre achievements. But I wasn't ready to reveal that yet. Instead, I smiled. A calm, collected smile that made Derek's grin falter just slightly. "You know what, Derek?" I said quietly. "I'm actually glad I rented. Because what I've built will last longer than anything you could ever buy." The confusion on his face was priceless. I stood up, placed my napkin on the table, and walked away from that Thanksgiving dinner. My name is Olivia Bennett, and that moment changed everything. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel for more interesting revenge stories. I had always been the responsible one in the family. While Derek chased shiny business ideas and failed spectacularly time after time, I kept my head down and worked. I started in real estate when I was 25, fresh out of business school with a degree nobody in my family thought was worth anything. My father wanted me to be a lawyer like him. My mother wanted me to marry well and have grandchildren. Derek just wanted me to stay out of his spotlight. So I did. I stayed quiet. I worked my entry-level job at Morrison Real Estate Group, learned everything I could, and saved every penny. While Derek bought expensive cars and threw parties to impress his friends, I lived in a small apartment and studied market trends. While he borrowed money from our parents for his third failed startup, I made my first real estate investment. A small duplex in an overlooked neighborhood. Nothing fancy. Nothing that would make headlines. But it was mine, bought with money I'd saved and a loan I qualified for on my own. That duplex became 2 properties. Then 4. Then 10. I learned to spot undervalued properties before anyone else noticed them. I learned to negotiate deals that left sellers happy and gave me room to grow. I learned to keep my mouth shut and let my results speak for themselves. Except my results spoke so quietly that nobody in my family even heard them. The morning after Thanksgiving, I woke up in my rented apartment with Derek's words still ringing in my ears. Pathetic. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table, staring at my laptop screen. My portfolio management software showed the current value of all my properties. $753 million. I'd crossed the $750 million mark 3 months ago, but I hadn't told anyone. Why would I? My family had made it clear that my quiet success meant nothing compared to Derek's loud failures. He announced every new business venture with champagne and speeches. He posted on social media about his entrepreneurial journey and his hustle. He borrowed money from our parents, from aunts and uncles, from anyone who would listen to his pitch. And when those ventures failed, which they always did, he'd shrug it off and start planning the next one. Meanwhile, I'd been building something real. Something solid. Something that would last long after Derek's ego crumbled. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Olivia, honey, you left so abruptly last night. Derek didn't mean anything by it. He was just joking. You know how he is. Please don't make this a big thing. Family is more important than pride. I read the message 3 times before deleting it. Family is more important than pride. But apparently, family wasn't more important than Derek's need to humiliate me in front of everyone. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Aunt Patricia wanted to know if I was okay. Cousin Marcus asked if I needed to talk. Even my sister Vanessa, who usually avoided conflict like the plague, sent a cautious text asking if we could have lunch. They all wanted the same thing. They wanted me to forgive Derek, to smooth things over, to pretend his words hadn't cut deep. Nobody asked if Derek planned to apologize. Nobody suggested that maybe he was the one who needed to fix things. It was always my job to make peace, to be the bigger person, to swallow my pride and move on. I'd spent my entire life doing exactly that. When Derek crashed my father's car in high school and blamed it on me, I took the punishment because it was easier than fighting. When he borrowed $5,000 from me in college and never paid it back, I let it go because family doesn't keep score. When he told everyone at my college graduation party that I'd only gotten good grades because I had no social life, I smiled and changed the subject. I was tired of being the peacemaker. I was tired of watching Derek fail upward while I succeeded in silence. But I still wasn't ready to reveal my hand. Not yet. I needed the perfect moment, the perfect audience, the perfect opportunity to show everyone exactly what I'd built. 3 weeks after Thanksgiving, Derek announced his latest venture. He sent a family-wide email with the subject line, "Big News." I opened it reluctantly, already knowing what I'd find. Hey family. I'm excited to share that I'm launching a new tech startup called ConnectCore. We're developing an app that revolutionizes social networking by combining AI with real-time emotion recognition. I've already secured meetings with several potential investors, and I'm confident this is the one that's going to change everything. I'm hosting a launch party next month at the Metropolitan Club. Black tie optional. Can't wait to celebrate with all of you. Derek. I read it twice, trying to find any substance behind the buzzwords. AI. Emotion recognition. Social networking. It sounded like he'd thrown darts at a board of tech terms and built a business plan around whatever stuck. My father responded first. Proud of you, son. Let me know if you need anything. My mother added heart emojis. Vanessa wrote, sounds amazing. I closed my laptop without responding. Derek had launched 4 startups in the past 6 years. A meal delivery service that folded after 3 months. A fitness app that nobody downloaded. A consulting business that never had clients. A cryptocurrency trading platform that turned out to be barely legal. Each time, he'd sent the same excited email. Each time, the family had rallied around him with encouragement and checkbooks. Each time, I'd watched from the sidelines, wondering when everyone would realize that Derek's confidence didn't equal competence. I started digging into Derek's new venture out of pure curiosity. ConnectCore had a website that looked expensive but said nothing concrete. Lots of stock photos of diverse people smiling at their phones. Vague promises about disrupting the social media landscape and empowering authentic connections. No actual product information. No team bios. No clear business model. I found the company registration documents through public records. Derek had filed the LLC 3 weeks ago, right after Thanksgiving. The registered agent was listed as Marcus Peterson, Derek's college roommate who'd been involved in 2 of his previous failed ventures. I kept digging. Derek had been posting on LinkedIn about ConnectCore constantly, tagging potential investors and using hashtags like innovation and future tech. He'd created a pitch deck and shared it publicly, which was either brave or stupid. Probably stupid. The pitch deck promised a working prototype in 6 months and projected $10 million in revenue within the first year. The financial projections were pure fantasy. I'd reviewed enough legitimate business plans to recognize garbage when I saw it. Derek was asking for $500,000 in seed funding. He claimed he'd already secured $200,000 from private investors, but I doubted that was true. Most likely, he'd borrowed money from family members and was calling it investment capital. The whole thing was a disaster waiting to happen. Part of me wanted to warn him, to point out the obvious flaws in his plan, to save him from another humiliating failure. But then I remembered Thanksgiving dinner. I remembered, pathetic for renting. And I decided to let Derek dig his own grave. I had a meeting with my financial advisor, Marcus Sterling, at his downtown office. Marcus had been managing my portfolio for 3 years, and he'd watched my net worth climb from $50 million to over $750 million. He was one of the few people who knew the full extent of my success. Olivia, he said as I sat down in his office, I wanted to discuss some opportunities that have come across my desk recently. There's a commercial development project in the downtown area that I think would be perfect for your portfolio. He slid a folder across his desk. I opened it and studied the details. A mixed-use development with retail space on the ground floor and luxury condos above. The location was prime, the numbers looked solid, and the development team had a proven track record. What's the investment requirement? I asked. $15 million for a 30% stake, Marcus said. Conservative projections show a 25% return over 5 years, but I think it could be higher if the market continues trending upward. I studied the documents for several minutes. The neighborhood was gentrifying rapidly. Property values had increased 40% in the past 3 years. The development would be completed right as the area hit peak desirability. I'm in, I said. Draw up the paperwork. Marcus smiled. I had a feeling you'd say that. There's something else I wanted to mention. Your portfolio has grown substantially, and I think it's time to consider establishing a formal corporate structure. It would provide better liability protection and potential tax advantages. He was right. I'd been operating as an individual investor for too long. It was time to legitimize my empire. Derek's launch party arrived with all the fanfare he'd promised. The Metropolitan Club was decorated with banners featuring the Connect Core logo, which looked like it had been designed on a free website builder. Servers circulated with champagne and appetizers. A DJ played music that was too loud for conversation. Derek stood near the entrance, greeting guests like he was already a tech mogul. I arrived fashionably late, wearing a simple black dress that probably cost more than Derek's entire wardrobe. He spotted me immediately and waved me over with forced enthusiasm. Olivia. You made it. I wasn't sure you'd come after, the thing at Thanksgiving. But I'm glad you're here. This is going to be huge. Wait until you see the demo. The thing at Thanksgiving. He couldn't even acknowledge what he'd said, couldn't manage a real apology. Just a casual dismissal of the moment he'd humiliated me in front of our entire family. I wouldn't miss it, I said with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Derek launched into his pitch immediately, talking about market disruption and user engagement metrics and projected growth curves. I nodded at appropriate moments while scanning the room. I recognized a few faces. Distant relatives who'd invested in Derek's previous ventures. His college friends who always supported his schemes. A few people I didn't know, probably friends of friends who'd been promised ground floor opportunities. Nobody who looked like a serious investor. Nobody from the venture capital world. Nobody with real money or real influence. This launch party was just Derek's ego on display, funded by credit cards and family loans. The demo of Connect Core was a disaster. Derek had set up a projector and screen at the front of the room. He dimmed the lights dramatically and pulled up what was supposed to be a working prototype of the app. Instead, it was just a series of mock-up screens, the kind you'd create in a basic design program before writing any actual code. He clicked through slides showing what the app would look like, how it would function, what features it would have. Everything was hypothetical. Nothing was real. Someone in the audience asked when the actual working version would be available. Derek's answer was vague. We're in active development. The engineering team is making incredible progress. We're looking at a beta launch in 4 to 6 months, depending on funding. Translation: he didn't have an engineering team, and he was hoping to use investor money to hire one. Another person asked about user acquisition strategy. Derek threw out buzzwords about viral growth and network effects without saying anything concrete. I watched my father in the audience, nodding along like Derek was presenting something revolutionary. My mother beamed with pride. Vanessa looked bored but supportive. The rest of the family members smiled and clapped at appropriate moments, probably not understanding that they were witnessing a masterclass in smoke and mirrors. When the presentation ended, Derek asked if anyone was interested in investing. A few hands went up, mostly relatives who felt obligated to support him. I stayed silent, sipping my champagne and waiting for the inevitable crash. The next family dinner was at my parents' house, as always. Sunday dinners were a tradition nobody dared skip without a legitimate excuse. I arrived to find Derek already holding court in the living room, talking about Connect Core's momentum and the interest from major investors he'd supposedly received. It was all lies. I'd done my research. No legitimate venture capital firms were interested in Connect Core. The only people who'd invested were family members and Derek's desperate friends. "Olivia," my mother called from the kitchen. "Come help me with the salad." I joined her, grateful for the escape from Derek's performance. My mother was arranging vegetables on a platter, her movements quick and efficient. "I'm so proud of Derek," she said without looking up. "This business really seems like it has potential. Your father and I invested $25,000. We wanted to support him." $25,000. Money my parents had saved for retirement, now poured into Derek's fantasy. "Did you have anyone review the business plan?" I asked carefully. "Did you talk to a financial advisor?" My mother waved a hand dismissively. "Derek knows what he's doing. He's been studying the tech industry for months. Besides, family supports family. That's what we do." I wanted to scream. I wanted to explain that throwing money at Derek's delusions wasn't support, it was enabling. But I knew my mother wouldn't listen. In her eyes, Derek could do no wrong. He was the golden child, the one with big dreams and bigger ambitions. I was just the quiet daughter who played it safe. 2 weeks after the launch party, Derek showed up at my apartment unannounced. I heard the knock while I was reviewing property acquisition proposals at my kitchen table. When I opened the door, he stood there looking sheepish, his usual confidence deflated. "Hey," he said. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside without a word. Derek walked past me and sat on my couch, looking around at my modest apartment. I could see the judgment in his eyes, the same judgment that had led to his comment at Thanksgiving. To him, this rented apartment was proof of my failure. He had no idea that I rented by choice, that I could buy this entire building if I wanted to. "So," Derek said, rubbing his hands together nervously. "I wanted to talk to you about something. Connect Core is moving faster than expected, and I'm looking to close our seed round. I'm offering investment opportunities to family members at a special rate. Ground floor opportunity, you know." I sat down across from him. "You're asking me for money." "I'm offering you an investment opportunity," he corrected. "Big difference. This is a chance to get in early on something that's going to explode. I'm talking about a potential 10 times return within 3 years. How much? 25,000 gets you 5% equity. 50,000 gets you 12%. Or if you wanted to go bigger, I could probably work out something custom." I looked at my brother, really looked at him. He was 35 years old, still chasing the same impossible dreams he'd been chasing since college. Still convinced that his next venture would be the one that made him a millionaire. Still blind to his own pattern of failure. "Derek," I said calmly, "have you ever wondered why all your previous businesses failed?" His face reddened immediately. "That's not fair. I had some bad luck with timing and market conditions. Every entrepreneur faces setbacks. That's part of the process. For businesses in 6 years isn't bad luck. It's a pattern. And now you're asking family members to invest in number 5. Derek stood up, his earlier nervousness replaced by anger. "You know what your problem is, Olivia? You're too afraid to take risks. You play it safe, rent a mediocre apartment, work your boring job, and judge people who actually try to build something meaningful. At least I'm out there swinging. At least I'm trying to create something that matters. What have you done? What have you built? The words hung between us. I could end this right now. I could pull up my portfolio on my laptop and show him exactly what I'd built. $753 million in real estate holdings. Properties in 12 states. Commercial developments, residential complexes, retail centers. An empire built brick by brick while he built castles in the air. But I didn't. Instead, I stood up and walked to my door, opening it in a clear invitation for him to leave. I'm not investing in Connect Core, I said quietly. And I think you should seriously reconsider asking family members for money when you haven't even built a working product. Derek stared at me for a long moment, then laughed bitterly. Pathetic, he muttered as he walked past me. Still pathetic. The door closed behind him, and I stood there in my quiet apartment, trembling with anger and something else. Relief, maybe. Because I'd finally said no. Connect Core's progress, or lack thereof, became a regular topic at family gatherings. Derek provided constant updates, each more grandiose than the last. He'd secured interest from a major tech accelerator. He was in talks with Silicon Valley investors. He'd hired a world-class development team to build the platform. None of it was true. I knew because I'd started monitoring his business more carefully. The tech accelerator had rejected his application. The Silicon Valley investors had never returned his calls. The development team was one freelancer Derek had found on a budget website, who'd already quit after Derek couldn't pay him. But Derek kept up the facade, kept collecting money from family members, kept promising that the big breakthrough was just around the corner. My father invested another $15,000. Uncle Raymond put in $10,000. Cousin Marcus contributed $5,000. Even Aunt Patricia, who was on a fixed income, invested $3,000 she couldn't afford to lose. I watched it happen with growing horror and a strange sense of vindication. Derek had called me pathetic for being careful with money, for building something real instead of chasing fantasies. Now he was proving exactly why my approach was right. My phone rang late one Wednesday night. My father. Olivia, I wanted to ask your opinion on something. Derek's business is growing quickly, and he needs additional funding. He's asked if we could take out a home equity loan to invest more. Your mother thinks it's a good idea, but I wanted to get your perspective first. I closed my eyes, feeling sick. Dad, I said carefully, please don't take out a home equity loan. Please don't risk your house on Derek's business. There was a long silence. Then my father said, you don't have faith in your brother? This isn't about faith. This is about reality. Derek doesn't have a working product. He doesn't have real investors. He doesn't have a viable business plan. Taking out a home equity loan would be a massive mistake. Your brother is doing something ambitious, my father said, his voice cooling. He's taking risks, building something. I know you've always been more conservative, Olivia, but not everyone wants to play it safe. Some people dream bigger. The words stung, even though I'd heard variations of them my entire life. I'm trying to protect you, I said. Derek has failed before. He'll fail again. Don't bet your house on him. I think we're done with this conversation, my father said. Your mother and I will make our own decisions about supporting our son. He hung up. I sat there in my apartment, looking at my laptop screen where my portfolio management software showed my current net worth. $756 million now. I'd made $3 million in the past month just from property appreciation and rental income. And my father thought I played it safe. Thought I dreamed too small. I made a decision that night. I was tired of hiding my success. Tired of letting my family think I was some kind of failure while Derek played dress-up as an entrepreneur. It was time to reveal exactly what I'd built. But I needed the right moment. The right stage. The right audience to make it count. That moment came sooner than I expected. Derek announced he was hosting an investor presentation at a downtown hotel conference room. He'd rented space, hired a photographer, and invited local business media. He was going all in, trying to manufacture legitimacy through spectacle. The family was invited, of course. Derek sent out a formal invitation with the Connect Core logo, describing it as a major announcement about the company's future. My mother called me 3 times to make sure I was coming. I confirmed each time, knowing exactly what I was going to do. I spent the week before the presentation making my own preparations. I contacted Marcus Sterling and asked him to prepare a comprehensive portfolio report. I called my attorney and had her draw up incorporation documents for my new company. I reached out to a few journalist contacts I'd made over the years and gave them a heads up about a potential story. The night before Derek's presentation, I couldn't sleep. I kept running through scenarios in my mind, imagining how it would unfold. Part of me felt guilty for what I was about to do. Derek was still my brother, despite everything. But then I remembered Thanksgiving. I remembered, pathetic for renting. I remembered every dismissive comment, every judgment, every moment my family had treated my quiet success like failure. The guilt faded. I woke up early the next morning and dressed carefully. A tailored navy suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Simple jewelry that was quietly expensive. I looked like success without shouting about it. I arrived at Derek's presentation exactly on time. The conference room was set up with rows of chairs facing a stage where Derek stood, looking nervous despite his practiced smile. The presentation was even worse than the launch party. Derek had created a new pitch deck with more elaborate graphics and bolder claims. Connect Core was now projected to reach 50 million users in its first year. Revenue projections had climbed to 30 million annually. He showed testimonials from beta testers who didn't exist. He displayed partnership agreements with companies that had never heard of him. I watched my family members nod along, their faces showing pride and belief. They wanted Derek to succeed so badly that they'd convinced themselves his obvious lies were truth. The local business journalist Derek had invited looked skeptical, taking notes but not asking the softball questions Derek clearly expected. When Derek opened the floor for questions, I raised my hand. He spotted me and smiled, probably thinking I was about to ask something supportive. Yes, Olivia? Could you clarify your user acquisition strategy? I asked. You're projecting 50 million users in year 1, but most successful apps take 3 to 5 years to reach that level. What's your marketing budget, and what specific channels are you planning to use? Derek's smile tightened. We have a comprehensive digital marketing strategy that leverages viral growth mechanics and network effects. The app is designed to be inherently shareable. That's not a strategy, I said gently. That's a hope. Do you have any paying users currently? We're in pre-revenue growth phase, Derek said, his confidence wavering. That's standard for tech startups. You build the user base first, then monetize. So no paying users. No proven business model. No working product beyond mock-ups. But you're asking people to invest based on projections? The room had gone completely silent. The journalist was writing furiously. Derek's face turned red. Olivia, if you're not interested in supporting the family business, maybe you should leave. I'm interested in truth, I said, standing up. And the truth is that Connect Core is not a viable business. It's a fantasy built on false projections and empty promises. You've collected over $100,000 from family members for a product that doesn't exist and probably never will. My father stood up. Olivia, that's enough. This is your brother's moment. No, Dad. This is the moment everyone needs to wake up. I pulled out my phone and opened my portfolio app, then connected it to the conference room's projector using my laptop. Derek tried to stop me, but I was faster. My portfolio appeared on the screen behind him. Every property. Every value. Every investment. The total at the bottom, $756 million. The room erupted. My mother gasped. Vanessa's mouth fell open. My father stared at the screen like he was seeing a ghost. The journalist's pen moved across his notepad at lightning speed. My name is Olivia Bennett, I said, my voice calm despite my racing heart. For the past 8 years, I've been building a real estate portfolio while everyone in this family focused on Derek's dreams. I currently own properties in 12 states, including commercial developments, residential complexes, and retail centers. My net worth is $756 million. I achieved this by making smart investments, doing thorough research, and building something real instead of selling fantasies. Derek stood frozen on stage, his presentation forgotten. I continued. Derek called me pathetic for renting at Thanksgiving. He mocked me for not buying a house. What he didn't know was that I own 43 houses. I own the building where I rent my apartment. I own the strip mall where his favorite coffee shop is located. You've been lying to us, my father said, his voice shaking. All this time, pretending to be struggling. I wasn't pretending anything, I replied. I was quiet. There's a difference. I didn't need to announce every success because I wasn't looking for validation. I was building something real. Derek finally found his voice. This is fake. There's no way you have that kind of money. You're making this up to embarrass me. I have documentation, I said. Property deeds, tax returns, financial statements. All verified and legal. Unlike your projections, my numbers are real. The journalist raised his hand. Ms. Bennett, why reveal this now? Why keep it secret for so long? I looked directly at Derek as I answered. Because I was tired of being called pathetic by someone who's failed at every business venture he's ever attempted. I was tired of watching my family invest in lies while dismissing my actual success. And mostly, I was tired of playing small to make other people feel big. My mother was crying now, though I wasn't sure if it was from shock or something else. Uncle Raymond looked sick, probably thinking about the $10,000 he'd given Derek. Aunt Patricia seemed angry, her face tight with emotion. The truth is, I continued, I could have helped Derek if he'd ever asked respectfully. I could have mentored him, invested in something legitimate, shared what I'd learned. But he was too busy mocking me to consider that I might actually know what I was doing. Derek walked off the stage, pushing past me roughly. The journalist called after him, but he kept going, disappearing through the conference room doors. The presentation was over. What I'd built in silence was now public knowledge. The aftermath of that presentation was explosive. The local business journalist published a story titled, "Local Woman Reveals $750 Million Real Estate Empire While Brother's Startup Crumbles." It went viral locally, then regionally, then nationally. Within 48 hours, I was being contacted by media outlets, business magazines, and podcasters wanting to know my story. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Marcus Sterling called to congratulate me on finally going public. My attorney called to discuss media strategy and privacy concerns. Investment firms called with partnership proposals. Derek didn't call. Neither did my parents. Vanessa sent a text, "I can't believe you never told me. We need to talk." I ignored most of the media requests, agreeing only to a few interviews with legitimate business publications. I told my story carefully, how I started with nothing, how I built my portfolio through smart investments and hard work, how I'd kept it private to avoid exactly the kind of attention I was getting now. The journalists wanted to know about Derek, about the family drama, about the confrontation at his presentation. I kept my answers diplomatic. My brother and I have different approaches to business. That's all. But the internet had no interest in diplomacy. People found Derek's LinkedIn posts about Connect Core and tore them apart. They found his previous failed businesses and created timelines of his pattern of failure. They compared his projected net worth to mine and laughed at the contrast. Derek became a cautionary tale, a punchline, a symbol of fake entrepreneurship. I felt guilty about that, but only slightly. He'd created this situation. I just revealed the truth. My father finally called a week after the presentation. His voice was stiff, formal. "Your mother and I would like to meet with you. Neutral location. Just to talk." We met at a quiet restaurant downtown. My parents sat across from me, both looking older than I remembered. My father spoke first. "Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me?" I asked. "Or would you have assumed I was exaggerating, lying, trying to compete with Derek?" My mother dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. "We've always supported you, Olivia. We've always been proud of you." "You've always been proud of Derek," I corrected gently. I was the boring one. The one who played it safe. "You invested $25,000 in his fantasy without asking any questions, but you never once asked me about my investments." "Because you never told us," my father said, his voice rising. "You kept secrets from your family." "I kept my business private," I said. "That's not the same as lying. And honestly, can you blame me? Every time I tried to warn you about Derek's ventures, you accused me of being unsupportive. Every time I suggested caution, you said I was jealous. Why would I share my success with people who were determined to see me as a failure?" The silence that followed was heavy. My mother finally spoke. "Derek is devastated. The media attention has been brutal. He's talking about leaving town, starting over somewhere else." "That's probably not a bad idea," I said. "A fresh start might help him figure out what he actually wants to do instead of chasing whatever sounds impressive." "He's your brother," my father said. "You destroyed him publicly." "I told the truth," I replied. "If the truth destroyed him, that's because his entire image was built on lies. I'm not responsible for protecting Derek's ego at the expense of reality." My father stood up. "I don't think we have anything more to discuss. Your mother and I need to figure out how to support Derek through this." "What about the home equity loan?" I asked. "Did you take it out?" My mother looked away. My father's jaw tightened. "That's none of your concern." "You did," I said, understanding flooding through me. "You took out a loan on your house to invest in Connect Core. And now that money is gone." "Derek will pay it back," my father said, but his voice lacked conviction. "When he gets his next venture going, he'll make it right." I pulled out my checkbook, wrote a check for $50,000, and slid it across the table. "Pay off the loan," I said. "Consider it a gift, not a loan. But this is the last time I'm cleaning up Derek's mess." My father stared at the check like it might bite him. "We don't need your charity." "It's not charity. It's me protecting my inheritance. If you lose your house because of Derek, that affects me too. Take the check, pay off the loan, and please stop enabling him." My mother took the check before my father could protest. "Thank you," she whispered. I left the restaurant feeling hollow. I'd won, I'd proven my point, I'd revealed my success. So why did it feel so empty? Derek finally reached out 3 weeks after the presentation. A single text message, "Can we talk?" I debated ignoring it, but curiosity won. I agreed to meet at a coffee shop near his apartment. He looked terrible. Unshaven, wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt. The confident entrepreneur persona was completely gone. "Thanks for meeting me," he said as I sat down. "I wasn't sure you would." "What do you want, Derek?" He stirred his coffee slowly. "I wanted to apologize. For Thanksgiving. For calling you pathetic. For all of it. You were right about everything, and I was wrong. Connect Core was a disaster. I wasted everyone's money, damaged my reputation, and lost the respect of our family. You tried to warn me, and I wouldn't listen." I said nothing, waiting for him to continue. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about why I keep failing. Why I keep chasing these impossible ideas instead of building something real. I think I was scared. Scared that if I did something normal, something practical, I'd be invisible. So I went big, made noise, pretended to be successful even when I wasn't." "That must be exhausting," I said. Derek laughed bitterly. "It was. It is. I'm tired, Olivia. I'm 35 years old with nothing to show for it except debt and embarrassment. Meanwhile, you've built an empire by doing exactly what I mocked you for. Playing it smart. Building slowly. Staying quiet. So what are you going to do now? I asked. I don't know, he admitted. I've been applying for regular jobs. Marketing positions, business development roles. Nothing glamorous. It's humbling. We sat in silence for a while. I studied my brother, seeing him clearly for maybe the first time. He wasn't a villain. He was just someone who'd gotten lost in his own mythology, who'd confused noise with success. I can help you, I said finally. But only if you're serious about changing. No more grand schemes. No more borrowing money from family. No more fake presentations and empty promises. Derek looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. What do you mean? I need a property manager for my residential portfolio. It's a real job with real responsibilities. You'd be managing tenants, coordinating maintenance, handling leases. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work, and it pays well. If you prove yourself, there could be opportunities to grow into bigger roles. You'd hire me after everything? Derek asked, his voice breaking slightly. You're still my brother, I said. And despite everything, I don't want to see you fail. I want to see you succeed at something real. Derek wiped his eyes quickly. I don't deserve your help. Probably not, I agreed. But I'm offering it anyway. On one condition, you start seeing a therapist. You need to figure out why you've been chasing validation through fake success instead of building something real. He nodded slowly. Okay. I can do that. I will do that. We shook hands across the table, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was looking at my actual brother instead of the persona he'd been wearing. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Derek had a lot of work to do on himself, and I wasn't naive enough to think one conversation would fix years of bad patterns. But it was a start. 6 months later, I hosted a small gathering at my new office. I'd finally established my real estate company officially, Bennett Property Group. The office was modest but professional, located in a renovated building I owned downtown. Marcus Sterling was there, along with my attorney, a few business associates, and surprisingly, my family. Derek arrived on time, dressed professionally, looking healthier than he had in years. He'd been working as my property manager for 4 months and had proven himself reliable and hardworking. More importantly, he'd been seeing a therapist weekly and seemed genuinely committed to change. My parents came together, both looking uncomfortable but present. My mother hugged me tightly. I'm sorry we didn't see what you were building, she whispered. I'm sorry we made you feel invisible. Vanessa brought her new boyfriend, a quiet accountant she'd been dating for 3 months. She pulled me aside during the gathering. You inspired me, she said. I've been hiding too, playing small to avoid standing out. I'm going back to school for my MBA. I want to build something too. The journalist who'd broken my story showed up as well, along with a photographer. They were doing a follow-up piece about how I'd built my empire and what I was doing with it now. I'd started a mentorship program for young women in real estate, teaching them the skills I'd learned through trial and error. As I looked around the room at the people who doubted me, mocked me, or simply never noticed me, I felt something unexpected: forgiveness. Derek approached me near the end of the gathering, holding a small wrapped gift. This is for you, he said. For the office. I unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a framed photograph of our family from years ago, back when we were kids. Derek and I were sitting together on our old porch, both smiling, before competition and comparison had poisoned everything between us. I found it at Mom and Dad's house, Derek explained. I wanted to remind both of us that we used to be on the same team. And maybe we can be again. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you, I said quietly. This means a lot. No, Derek said. Thank you. For giving me a second chance. For showing me what real success looks like. I'm learning that it's not about the noise you make or the image you project. It's about what you actually build, day after day, when nobody's watching. After everyone left, I sat alone in my new office, looking at that childhood photograph. I thought about Thanksgiving dinner, about Derek's cruel words, about the moment I'd decided to stop hiding. The journey from that humiliating moment to this quiet victory had been harder than I'd expected. Revealing my success had brought validation, but also complicated my relationships with people I loved. The viral attention had been overwhelming and sometimes invasive. My family dynamics had shifted in ways that were still uncomfortable. But I'd also gained something invaluable, the freedom to be fully myself. No more playing small. No more hiding my achievements to make others comfortable. No more accepting being called pathetic when I'd built an empire. My phone buzzed with a notification. Another property acquisition had closed successfully. Number 78 in my portfolio. $762 million now. I smiled, thinking about how Derek had once mocked me for renting. How he'd assumed my quiet life meant I had nothing. How wrong he'd been about everything. The best revenge wasn't destroying him publicly, though I'd done that. The best revenge wasn't proving him wrong, though I'd done that too. The best revenge was building something so substantial, so undeniable, that his words lost all their power. I was Olivia Bennett. I owned properties in 14 states now. I employed 37 people. I mentored young women who reminded me of myself at 25. I'd started with nothing and built something extraordinary, not through noise or bravado, but through patience, intelligence, and unwavering focus. Derek had called me pathetic for renting. But now everyone knew the truth. I didn't rent because I had to. I rented because I owned buildings worth hundreds of millions of dollars and didn't need to prove anything to anyone. The empire I'd built in silence was now impossible to ignore. And that, finally, was enough.